Good morning and welcome back to another in our series of webinars called Pulling Back the Curtain. Today we're going to discuss Pennsylvania's home inspection law and how it applies to buyers purchasing a home with a contingency for a home inspection. Learn who can be a home inspector, what can the home inspection say, who gets a copy of it, what if the home inspector misses something it's called a material defect. What are your rights and remedies? This should be relatively short, so if you've got questions as we go along, just type them into the chat and we'll answer them. We'll probably answer them as we go along. Let me share my PowerPoint with you. And here we go. So again, pulling back the curtain series, what buyers should know about Pennsylvania's home inspection law. A little bit about me. I've been in the real estate business for over 30 years. I've been part of the multi-list for decades. I own a mortgage company, Advocate Mortgage Services. We've closed hundreds of millions of dollars in mortgages over the decades. I actually have personally closed residential real estate transactions, hundreds of them, and issued thousands of policies. I'm also a certified financial planner and registered investment advisor. The first, where we're going to start with this is what qualifies as a home inspection, which you have to understand what it is and what it isn't. It's a non-invasive, visual inspection of the property, and it's an inspection of more than one system. So it's a combination. It's not a single inspection. It's a combination of mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, or the structural and essential components of the residential dwelling. Sorry for essential being misspelled there. It's performed for a fee, and it's in connection with or in preparation for a real estate transfer. There are some questions about whether or not, if you do a home inspection before you sign a contract, whether the seller is actually entitled to a copy of it. Arguably, if you're doing the home inspection because you're going to make an offer, the seller is typically entitled to a copy if they ask. It's designed to identify material defects. Okay, so it's not everything, but if the defect will have a material adverse impact on the value or could result in personal injury, those are material defects. Again, it does not include an examination of single components like a plumbing inspection, roof, termite wells, septic systems. Now, you may want to get those as well, and you have to do all those during the same home inspection contingency period as the home inspection. To decide what you want to get inspected, you probably first want to rely on the seller disclosure. Take a hard look at that, see what it jumps out at you, how a certain component is. Just because something's old or near the end of its life doesn't mean it's a material defect. But again, the home inspector may not be a roof expert. And so when you're doing your inspection, if the roof is over 20 years or over 30 years old, you may want to get a roof inspection. That could be part, you can decide by contract whether or not the roof inspection is part of the home inspection, but again, you may want to get an actual roofer, for example. Who can do a home inspection? Uncle Bob can't do your home inspection. Okay, they can do it if you're not doing the home inspection because of the inspection contingency clause in the standard agreement of sale. The Pennsylvania Association of Realtors standard agreement of sale requires that you have certain people actually conduct the inspection. You have to be a member of a national homeowners association. That means you have to participate in more than 100 home inspections, pass the exam, apply with the code of conduct, and attend continuing education classes. You can work for a member as long as the employer signs the report. The actual inspector doesn't need to be a member, but you can't just have anybody do an inspection if it's for purposes of the home inspection contingency clause in your agreement of sale. Also, the home inspector has to maintain at least $100,000 per occurrence, $500,000 in aggregate insurance, liability insurance, with no more than $2,500 deductible. Engineers and architects are accepted from this requirement. They don't have to be a member of the National Association. They could do a home inspection, but a home inspector can't act as an engineer or an architect unless they're licensed as such. what's in the home inspection. It has to cover certain things. It has to cover the scope and identify the structural elements, systems, and subsystems covered. So it's got to say what they're going to inspect, what systems they're inspecting. It has to describe any material defect, and they can recommend, they don't have to, they can recommend that you retain certain experts to address anything that they're identifying as material defect. If the defect they're identifying poses any unreasonable risk to people on the property, they have to say that in conspicuous language, bold print. Okay, they've got to point that out to you if it's an unreasonable risk to the people on the property. And then there's other required language. By the statute, the inspection has to tell you that it assists in the overall evaluation based on visible observation of property. This is not invasive. They're not opening up walls to take a look at wiring and plumbing inside the walls. The report does not deal with latent or concealed defects. It's got to say this stuff. There's no warranty or guarantee implied by the contract. It's not a structural report unless a licensed engineer does it, and it's not an appraisal. Again, this is one inspection. This is the general inspection that you probably would, at least we can suggest to our buyers, to obtain on every transaction. Now, we understand that with the market the way it is, and it's a seller's market, that a lot of people are skipping this, waiving this contingency, and you do so at your own risk. There are some things that are big ticket items, the roof and the structure. So if you have your choice, I would recommend that you get a home inspection. What can be included by contract, you and the home inspector can decide what's the scope, what are they going to inspect, what's going to be included, what's going to be excluded. What can't be in the home inspection report. Sometimes home inspectors try and slip clauses in to these reports, and these are not valid. They're void. They're against public policy. There's a limitation on the liability of the inspector for gross negligence or willful misconduct, or a waiver of any provision in the law. Those are void clauses. And surprisingly in the law, surprisingly to me, it says that the home inspector cannot give an estimate of the cost of repairs if they identify a repair that needs to be done. They can't give an estimate unless they identify the source of the estimate, where they're getting the numbers from. It has a range of costs, and it says, it states that the parties, you, the buyer, should consider obtaining an estimate from a contractor who does that kind of repair. And that probably is due, at least in part, to a provision where it says that the home inspector can't do repairs on the property if they've done the home inspection within the last 12 months. We're going to get to that in a minute. Here it is. It's less than a minute. What are prohibited acts by the home inspector? Offering to perform repairs within 12 months from the date of the report, except for radon and termite inspections, wood destroying insect inspections. They're allowed to actually do a radon or a pest inspection. Also, another exception for inspectors that have a relationship with the home warranty company. The home warranty company is going to pay for the repairs. If a home inspector does do repairs other than wood and radon within 12 months, they have to pay back all the money that they got. They've got to pay a full refund of whatever payments were made. They also cannot inspect a property that they have a financial interest in unless they disclose it to the buyer, to you, and you sign an acknowledgement saying that, yeah, I understand the home inspector has financial interest in the property, including the real estate agent. So if real estate agent says, I'll be the home inspector, they're going to have to disclose that and have you sign an acknowledgement. Also, home inspectors cannot give kickbacks to the seller or to the real estate agent to refer them business. And they can't make the report contingent upon the conclusions. The fee, they can't charge a fee depending on the conclusion. So if you come back with a clean home inspection, you get paid X dollars, but if there's problems, you get paid less. That's prohibited. And they also are prohibited from engaging in gross negligence or willful misconduct. You'll see disclaimers in some of the contracts that say, hey, we're only liable for the cost of the inspection. Well, maybe, maybe not. I mean, if there's something that's very obvious and it's very expensive, like a complete failure of the structure, they're probably going to be liable for that. Who gets a copy? Nobody gets a copy. It's confidential, except if you've got the home inspector's got to give you, the buyer, a copy of the inspection. And if the sellers ask for it, you have to give them a copy for free. You don't have to give them the appraisal. In the contract, it will say that, but you have to give them the home inspection if they ask. So when is the inspector liable? The home inspector does an inspection. So what's the standard of care? What do they have to do? They have to act as a reasonably prudent home inspector. Well, who's a reasonably prudent home inspector? How do you decide who that is? Well, they said in the law, the courts are to consider the standards of practice and codes of ethics of National Home Inspection Association. So they'll look at the National Home Inspectors Association. They'll look at their standards of practice and codes of ethics. And if the home inspector violates those, that's a violation of the standard of care, as well as, again, gross negligence or willful misconduct. They just blow it. And the good thing is, the statute, the act requires that they have insurance. We're going to get to that too. Remedies. Okay, if the home inspector violates this and you discover a material defect, again, something that seriously affects the value of the property or is a big risk to people on the property, it's a violation of the Unfair Trade Practices and Consumer Protection Law. And the damages include actual damages tripled, and then the seller could have to pay for the home inspector could have to pay for your attorney fees. That's a big hammer. Triple damages and being liable for attorney fees is very, very it's got a lot of teeth, and so this is a consumer protection law that you really want to be aware of if in the event that you find a material defect after closing. You got to bring it within one year of the date of the report. Any claim that you make against the home inspector has to be delivered within 1 year of the date of the report. Very short time. What's the source of payment for the claim? Again, if the home inspector doesn't have a lot of money, they've got to have insurance. 100,000 per occurrence, 500,000 in the aggregate. So this is a great source of a remedy for you. If you sue a home inspector that doesn't have anything or has a shield of a corporation, they've got to have insurance, and you want to go make a claim with that insurance company. So you may even want to ask them for a copy of their declaration page of their homeowners, or not homeowners, their errors and omissions insurance, so you know who the company is in the event that you find a material defect. So that was it. If pretty short and quick, right? If you have questions, feel free to call me at 412-921-7100 or email me with questions at keith@keitheliou.com. We appreciate you attending, and we'll look forward to seeing you at future webinars.